everybody to the Captain Spot. I'm your host, Justin Freeman. 6 foot 1 inches, 275 pounds of fantasy knowledge. And it is a Sunday night, week 7 edition of the Captain Spot, where the schedule makers have blessed us with a rearrangement to give us Cardinals and Seahawks. This game's in Arizona, 55.5 point total. Seahawks favored by 3.5 points. This looks like a really good one. Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, two of the best quarterbacks in football right this second. A couple offenses that are lighting it up right now. It's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to just dive head first and get creative with lineups. Before we hop into the slate, quick reminder, subscribe right here, youtube.com/thecptspot. Click the subscribe button, click like, you know all the things to do, guys, that help us out so much. The more we get subscribers, the more we can continue doing this for you for free all season long. Also, check it out on your favorite podcasting app. Search for the Captain Spot. It'll pop right up. Go ahead and subscribe there as well. And you'll get the Monday Night Football show over on Mayo Media Network. Subscribe there. So that's enough of the sales pitch. Let's hop right into this slate where, again, we're talking about a 55.5 point total, a game between two of the best quarterbacks, 3.5 point spread. That concludes. This should be a pretty competitive game. This should be a haymaker exchange between Wilson and Kyler Murray. Should be a lot of fun to break this down. We're going to have major salary constraints on this slate with a lot of, preeminent players. We're talking two of the best quarterbacks that we feel like we got to get in there. Deandre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. A couple of good running backs. Chris Carson on one side. A little bit of a running back controversy on the other side between Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds. Drake sort of pulled away last week. The pricing reflects that. So how are we going to choose to operate that particular situation? First, let's make sure we have a really good understanding of the injury report, where there's one guy up here who I think could go a little bit unnoticed. Carlos Hyde has been out for the last several weeks, and he's back this week. He is on the injury report as being a limited participant in practice on Wednesday and Thursday. Full practice on Friday, carries no game designation for this weekend. He'll play. What does that mean for sort of that secondary running back split behind Chris Carson? And could that even eat into Chris Carson's expected workload between those two guys? Travis Homer's come in, played well, but will Carlos Hyde just sort of take back all of that? A portion of that? Could they eat into Chris Carson? That remains to be seen. Making a stand on that backfield situation would be pretty important. There's not a lot of real skill players of concern. Will Dissly will play. Metcalf, Lockett will play. My kids are going crazy in the background. You can probably hear them. Nick Bellore will play also for the Seattle side. On the Arizona side, we actually have a truly questionable player in Deandre Hopkins. Has not practiced all week. I guess he was a limited participant on Friday. Carries a questionable designation and is expected to sort of take that all the way up until game time. But we've seen this before from Deandre Hopkins, and he tends to play in this situation. So I would rather project assuming he's in, and we can adjust if he's out. We can sort of talk through those different scenarios. So let's hop into the pricing, where we are going to look at both these quarterbacks being 12.8 and 12K. As you can see, you can just sort of look at it right away and know, oh man, this $50,000 is going to go by really fast. We're going to have to think of some unique things for us to do in this game. So Russell Wilson at 12.8, certainly, probably the quarterback that's going to have sort of the better projectable passing upside between the weapons he has available in Metcalf and Lockett. But, Kyler Murray is now taking up such a big portion of the ground game for Arizona that the two players are relatively comparable. I think you could justify playing either of these guys. And, as always, when we're talking about these high-priced slates, I encourage you to just sort of think through this process as to how either of these guys could be not in the winning lineup. It's super easy to imagine Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson being in the winning lineup. But what are the paths to them not being in there? Because you'll need the cash, and will also enjoy the upside, the leverage upside that comes by fading just one of them. So overall, we're banking on about 27% of the team's rushes going through Kyler Murray. And then at the running back position, Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds, that was the hot topic last week. And then Kenyon Drake has a huge game last week against the Cowboys, and now he's priced up accordingly. And now I'm tempted to want to encourage you to do the opposite of what we were doing last week. Like last week, we were in on Kenyon Drake over Chase Edmonds. The pricing didn't make sense. Now we have fair pricing. And so Chase Edmonds in a game where the Cardinals are projected to be playing from behind, is the passing down back. Maybe now I'm more interested in playing a guy like him. 4% of the team's targets go to Kenyon Drake. 13% go to Chase Edmonds. So in this particular script, I'm probably liking that Chase Edmonds side a little bit better considering the price. Jonathan Ward price at $200, simply cannot use him. Does not get any action. Chris Carson, $9,000. He's a great play, but that price makes it really tough. He'll probably have a good game in what projects to be sort of a rising tide lifting all boats type of game environment here. But at $9,000, you're just going to have to figure out whether you want to sort of incentivize the passing or the rushing side of the Seattle offense. And then Carlos Hyde and Travis Homer. These are a couple key pieces where I think, we want to try to make a stand. Like we can pretend that, Carlos Hyde comes back and gets all of his original work, in which case, he can easily pay off at $1,600. And Travis Homer, $600. Like, what if he just maintains a little bit of what he was doing? So just to give you a little bit of background, in the two games without Carlos Hyde, 15% and 19% of the team's rush attempts have gone to Travis Homer. That's really right in line with what we've seen from Carlos Hyde. So if we think that there's, maybe 20% of the team's rushes to go around, between Hyde and Homer, then it's tough for really either of them to pop. But if one of them can emerge, then they certainly can pay off salary for sure. Let's move on to the pass catchers in this game, where DK Metcalf is priced $2,000 above his teammate Tyler Lockett. 10-2 for DK Metcalf, 8-2 for Tyler Lockett. Now, we've seen sort of a tale of two seasons in terms of how the targets have been distributed in the offense between Metcalf and Lockett. Lockett in weeks 2 and 3 have really pulled away from Metcalf in terms of target market share. Weeks 4 and 5, very heavy in favor of DK Metcalf. So what will we see now that the Seahawks are coming off their bye week? Will they try to incentivize getting Lockett back involved? I think that's a real strong possibility. And so given the price difference, I think getting Lockett in your lineup makes a lot of sense for a number of reasons. Metcalf, certainly the more explosive player. And this is a game that probably figures to have, a disproportionate number of explosive plays. Like this should be an explosive play fest. So, fading DK Metcalf could be at your own peril. It just really takes one play from that guy. Sort of the tertiary options in the passing game for Seattle include David Moore, Greg Olsen, Will Dissly, Freddie Swain, Penny Hart. I don't think you can really use Penny Hart. $200 is a fair price, and on a slate with such strict pricing, maybe you think about it, but didn't play a snap last week. So you're banking on next to nothing there from Penny Hart. Freddie Swain, on the other hand, different story, $800. Compare that to $5,400 David Moore. They're the same player, guys, at this point. They're running similar number of snaps. Like if we look at the last 3 weeks or so, David Moore, 41%, 35%, 43%. So right around 40% of the team snaps every week. Freddie Swain, 45%, 43%, 39%. Same thing, guys. If we look at how much they're on the field running routes, they're once again the same player. Both running about 40% of the team's routes. And so the targets are available to either of those guys. We know routes run is a good predictor of targets. Targets a good predictor of fantasy success. So Freddie Swain, $800, could be one of the keys to unlocking this slate. And we look at the Arizona side. Deandre Hopkins, 10-8. He's going to want to be a core piece for me this week. We saw him sort of get game scripted out last week against the Cowboys. And, that's always possible. But in a game against Seattle, he's not getting game scripted out of anything. If anything, the Seattle side could get game scripted out, but I do not see a situation where Arizona isn't throwing the ball frequently all game. Christian Kirk, $6,400. We saw him pop last week for a couple touchdowns. One was on sort of a a passing handoff, so to speak. Another was a huge deep bomb. People will be in on Christian Kirk on some recency bias. And I understand, he's got some decent, peripheral numbers there as well. He's on the field a lot. Was on field for 81% of the team snaps last week. Drawing some targets, but it's not anything truly exciting. It doesn't mean that I'm all that interested in Larry Fitzgerald at $4,600, unless it's truly a salary reason. But I think we're going to need guys who have ceiling in this game. Usually I'm talking about floor for our flex positions. I think we're going to need some ceiling in our flex positions as well. I'm not positive Larry Fitzgerald will get us there. Andy Isabella, on the other hand, $3,000. We saw the team make it a point to try to get Andy Isabella targeted deep downfield. Now, he is not going to get loaded down with targets. He's not going to be on the field a ton. 31% of the team snaps for the last 2 weeks. That's not a lot. But, 8% and 9% of teams' targets last 2 weeks. He's just really consistent. They're going to get him 3 targets a game. That's just what they're going to do with Andy Isabella. And you're hoping that he can take 1 or 2 of them for a big play. At $3,000, that's all it'll take to pay off. And, he certainly possesses a lot more upside than Larry Fitzgerald. Darrell Daniels, $2,400, is the starting tight end. Just the tight ends in this offense are such an afterthought into their game plan. We're just not seeing a ton of usage. Dan Arnold has not drawn a target for the last 2 weeks. I think he did get a target last week, but it was, called back on a hold or a pass interference or something like that. If we look at Darrell Daniels, 8% and 5% of the team's targets last 2 weeks. You're truly praying for a touchdown at that point. I just would rather pay up a little bit more and get to Fitzgerald if you just want a low upside player. The cheap guys seem to all be on the Seattle side. Trent Sherfield, we can't use him as well. Looking at our captains, it's DeAndre Hopkins week, guys. He has such a clear path to being the captain because of his unique role in the offense. Whereas there's really 2 stud receivers over on the Seattle side, there's just one for Arizona, and that's DeAndre Hopkins. He's the guy capable of leading this slate in scoring the easiest. And after that, it's Kyler Murray, Tyler Lockett, Chris Carson, Russ Wilson, Kenyon Drake, DK Metcalf, and then a big drop. So I think those are the guys that we are wanting to consider in the captain spot. Obviously, Kyler Murray being the second highest scoring captain here is interesting. Usually the quarterbacks don't perform as well, but I think, Kyler is starting to dominate, any projectable rushing touchdowns in this offense. They're not just all going to Kenyon Drake, Chase Edmonds. Kyler Murray very, very involved there. So regardless of how the game script goes, Kyler Murray going to be involved. And is also capable of being the leading scorer on his own team, even when, he has a good day passing the football. Tyler Lockett and Chris Carson, sort of the 2 cheaper ways to get a piece of that Seattle offense with still having plenty of upside. Let's hop on over to our flex appearances, where it's Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, almost 50% for those guys in the flex, and we're going to want to try to get those guys in there. That means we're going to have to be unique with some guys over on that Seattle side. We sort of talked about that. It may even mean we have to get unique with kickers and defenses. Those types of plays will be more interesting this week. And I know defense doesn't make a lot of sense intuitively when we're talking about a game that has a 55-point total and could shoot out for more. But, keep in mind that, high pressure situations can lead to poor decision making from the quarterbacks, can lead to sacks, turnovers, pick sixes, which is where defenses can get paid. But the kickers are a good way to take advantage of what we know will be 2 explosive teams. What happens if they just work their way down the field and stall out near the goal line? Hey, it's kicker season. It's Zane Gonzalez season there for Arizona, for example, or Jason Myers for the Seahawks. But yeah, it'll be Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. It'll be Chris Carson there on the Seattle side as having sort of a locked-in role there. DeAndre Hopkins, Kenyon Drake, Tyler Lockett, Chase Edmonds. And so Edmonds sort of maybe the first of the cheaper guys that starts to emerge in our list. And then as we sort of scroll down a little bit further, see names like Andy Isabella. We see names like Carlos Hyde. See names like Freddie Swain. There are a lot of options for us to consider in that cheap area. But, overall, we're going to have to figure out, make a stand on that Seattle second string running back rotation, how that's going to work out, there's a lot of value there, especially near the end zone. One of those guys could get in instead of Chris Carson. If it ends up being like empty targets and empty rush attempts, then yeah, they're not going to pay off for you, but at least give yourself a chance. And then, Freddie Swain, he is the way to get the cheapest piece of a viable piece of the Seahawks offense. So that's going to do it for us this week here on the Captain Spot. We'll see you Monday over on the Mayo Media Network. We'll be talking a little bit of Monday Night Football. Check you guys out here soon.